You make $90,000 a year. You have a solid job, a decent apartment, maybe a car payment you're almost done with. And every single month, without fail, you sit there wondering where the hell your money went. Meanwhile, your college roommate, the one who dropped out sophomore year, just bought his second rental property. And you're smart, you're educated, you work hard. So why does it feel like you're running on a treadmill that keeps getting faster and you're never actually getting anywhere? Here's what's wild. It's not because you don't know enough about money. It's because of how you think about money. And there's a book that explains this better than anything I've ever read. My name is Joey, and on this channel, I want to teach you how to save, invest, use, and grow your money so you can have more freedom and retire earlier without depending on the government. Subscribe to the channel and like this video. The book is called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, and I want to be upfront. The link to grab your own copy is in the description. I genuinely think this is one of the most important finance books written in the last 20 years, and I'll tell you exactly why by the end of this video. Now, here's the problem Housel identifies right at the start. We've been taught that financial success is mostly about knowledge. Learn the right strategies, pick the right stocks, optimize the right accounts. But that's only a small part of the picture. The research is actually pretty brutal on this. According to a study published in the Journal of Financial Economics, individual investor behavior, panic selling, overtrading, chasing returns, costs the average person about 1.5% in returns per year. That doesn't sound like a lot until you realize that over 30 years, that behavioral gap can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not because you were dumb, because you were human. So today, I'm breaking down the 5 lessons from this book that hit me hardest. The ones that explain why high earners stay broke, why intelligent people make terrible money decisions, and what you can do to actually change it. Lesson 1. No one is actually irrational. They're just playing a different game than you. Here's the first thing Housel says that completely reframed how I see other people's financial decisions. When you see someone buying lottery tickets every week, your first reaction is probably something like, "That is insane." But think about it from their perspective for a second. If you grew up in a household where the stock market was never mentioned, where investing felt like something rich people did on TV, where every dollar was already spoken for before it hit the bank account, then a $2 lottery ticket might genuinely feel like your most realistic shot at a life-changing outcome. That's not irrational. That's a rational response to an entirely different lived reality. Housel's point is that our financial behavior is shaped by the tiny sliver of history we personally experienced. He actually puts a number on it. Our direct experience makes up about 0.000000001% of recorded financial history, and yet it shapes roughly 80% of how we think the world works. Your experiences aren't universal facts. They're your version of reality, and everyone else has their own version. So when someone makes a financial move that seems crazy to you, the real question isn't what's wrong with them. It's what would I believe about money if I had grown up exactly where they did? This matters practically because it changes how you filter financial advice. Not every strategy works for every person. A move that's brilliant for a 27-year-old with no dependents might be genuinely reckless for a 44-year-old with 3 kids and a mortgage. Know what game you're playing and be honest about it.
Lesson 2. Compound interest isn't really about math. It's about time. And most people don't give it enough. You've probably heard the compound interest speech 100 times. But here's the angle Housel takes that made it actually land for me. Warren Buffett's net worth is roughly $130 billion. Here's the part nobody talks about. More than $97 billion of that came after his 65th birthday. He started investing at age 10. By the time he was 30, he was worth about $1 million. By 59, he'd grown that to $3.8 billion. Then, compound interest just detonated. Now, run this counterfactual. If Buffett had started investing at 20 instead of 10, a perfectly normal starting age, and then retired at 60 to enjoy his wealth, his net worth today would be roughly $11 million. That is still incredible, but it's also 99.9% less than $130 billion. The difference is not genius. It's not better stock picks. It's time. Here's the math on the S&P 500 to make this concrete. If you invested $500 a month, starting at 25, with a historical average return of 10% per year, by age 65, you'd have about $3.2 million. If you start at 35 instead, just 10 years later, that number drops to $1.1 million. You contributed less money, but lost $2.1 million in wealth.
That's the cost of a decade of impatience. The book link is in the description. The chapter on compounding alone is worth the price of the book. Lesson 3. The goal was never the car, or the house, or the watch. The goal was always freedom. Housel writes one of my favorite lines in any finance book. The highest form of wealth is the ability to wake up every morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. Not financial freedom in the abstract, actual, daily, operational freedom. The ability to say no, the ability to leave, the ability to choose your hours, your projects, your environment. And here's the data that makes this hit different. Research from Princeton, a study by Nobel Prize-winning economists, found that emotional well-being rises with income up to about $75,000 a year. After that, more money has a surprisingly small effect on day-to-day happiness. What actually moves the needle is autonomy, control over your time. This is exactly why the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early, resonates with so many people. It's not really about retiring at 40 and lying on a beach. It's about never being financially trapped, never being forced to tolerate a toxic boss, a miserable commute, or a job you hate because you can't afford to walk away. Every dollar you save and invest is buying you one more unit of that freedom. That's the math that actually matters, not the brand on your car. Lesson 4. Market volatility isn't a problem to solve. It's the admission fee to long-term wealth. The S&P 500 has returned roughly 10 to 11% annually over the long run. But that return is not free. There's a cost. And that cost isn't money. It's emotional discomfort, uncertainty, the feeling of watching your account drop 30% and not knowing if it'll come back. Here's what actually happens when people can't stomach that fee. From 2007 to 2009, the S&P 500 dropped 57%. The majority of individual investors who lived through that sold somewhere near the bottom. They paid the volatility in full and walked away with none of the recovery. The market then went on a decade-long bull run. Those investors watched from the sidelines. Now look at the actual odds. Probability of making money in the S&P 500 over one day? 50-50. Over 1 year? 68%. Over 10 years? 88%. Over any 20-year period in modern history? 100%. Every single time. So the question is never whether the market will drop. It will, multiple times over your investing life. The question is whether you'll see that drop as a catastrophe and sell, or as the price of admission to the long game. Housel calls this paying the fee, not the fine. You chose to be there. The volatility is what you agreed to in exchange for the return. Lesson 5. Wealth is what you don't see. And most people are spending money trying to look wealthy to people who aren't paying attention. This one hits hardest for me. Housel writes, wealth is the nice cars not purchased, the expensive clothes foregone, the watches not bought. Think about the last time you saw someone drive by in a Porsche. Did you think, wow, that person is successful and cool? Probably not. You probably thought, wow, that car is beautiful, or I look good in that. The driver is basically invisible. The status signal failed because everyone is too busy imagining themselves in the driver's seat to admire the actual person sitting in it. And yet most of us are spending real money, money that could be compounding in an index fund, on exactly these signals, visible, depreciating symbols of wealth that nobody actually credits us for.
The people quietly building real wealth, they look boring. They drive average cars. They live in average houses. They wear clothes from Target. Because they've done the math, and they know that every dollar they don't spend on a status symbol is a dollar working for them 24 hours a day. Housel says it cleanly. The gap between your ego and your income is exactly the size of your potential wealth. Shrink the ego, widen the gap, watch the wealth grow. And look, if you want to go deeper on all 5 of these lessons, and there are 15 more in the book that are equally powerful, the link to grab The Psychology of Money is in the description. It's an easy read, under 300 pages, and I'd put it in the top 3 personal finance books ever written. The link is down there. Go check it out.
Here's the thing about this book. It doesn't just give you information, it gives you a mirror. It shows you the behavioral patterns that have probably been quietly costing you money for years without you even realizing it. And once you see those patterns, you can't unsee them. If this video made you think about money differently, hit subscribe. I drop new videos every week breaking down the math and psychology behind building real wealth. And leave a comment below. Which of these 5 lessons hit closest to home for you? I read every single one. I'll see you in the next one.